Hello, hello.
Hello.
Well, we thank everyone for joining us today for GiSTEMChats 21.3 Women in Engineering as we celebrate Women in Engineering Day. We appreciate you all for joining us. So first, I'll start with a little bit about GSTEM. GSTEM is a nonprofit, tax-exempt charitable organization under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. Our goal is to be an advocate for girls' interest in academic disciplines that can be challenging due to the lack of resources in public schools. We share the fundamental skills needed for girls to be prepared to be successful in STEM. We have professional women with STEM backgrounds providing advice and assistance to girls to help them quickly reach their goals. We want to ensure that each girl has the experience that is required to be successful and the confidence to know that she has what it takes to make an impact in the STEM community. So our mission, GSTEM is a nonprofit organization that influences and inspires girls to thrive in academic disciplines and careers in which the gender gap persists, to help them impact their minds, their future, and our STEM community. So we really appreciate you guys being here today. And I want to introduce you to our guests. We have three very amazing women with us here today. I'll start with Lillian. Lillian Walcott is a safety engineer at Shell Oil Company who supports, coaches, and provides technical safety assurance for renewable natural gas projects in North America. She began working at Shell as an intern in 2005. She worked as an intern at Shell Oil for 3 consecutive summers. Upon graduation, she worked as a process control systems engineer at Shell Oil and later as a process safety engineer, a technical safety engineer, project HSSE engineer, and project HSSE lead. She supported Shell's first renewable gas project, that's amazing, as the project HSSE lead. She received 2 Bachelor of Science degrees in chemical engineering and chemistry from the North Carolina A&T State University, where she graduated summa cum laude. Awesome. She also ran track at North Carolina A&T State University. She is married to Richard and has 2 daughters, Madison and Victoria. She's a member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and is currently the South Texas Emergency Response Coordinator for her sorority. She is also a professional photographer who specializes in family, children, and maternity portraits. During her free time, you can find her serving as a Girl Scout troop leader, volunteer, watching her girls swim, gardening, cycling, running, and traveling to the Caribbean with her family. How awesome is that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. We also have Major Candace Woods. She is the Operations Officer, 5th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron in Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. She directs maintenance operations for over 600 airmen, maintaining 27 B-52H aircraft, valued at $2.9 billion in direct support of deterrence and long-range strike capability for combatant command operations. Major Woods earned her commission in 2007 as a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps program at the North Carolina A&T State University. As a career aircraft maintenance officer, she has held various squadron and group level maintenance positions and been responsible for the maintenance operations of various aircraft and missions, including the A-10C, B-1B, B-52H, F-15E, KC-135, and the RQ-4 weapon systems. Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. We also have Lisa Woods. Lisa Henderson Woods is a graduate of the university. I can't leave you out. I know, I can't leave you out. I gotta do it. The University of Cincinnati, having received a Bachelor's of Science in Aerospace Engineering. She is a native of Dayton, Ohio. Lisa began her engineering career at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, where she was selected to receive an engineering scholarship. to the University of Cincinnati. After receiving her degree, she began working full-time, performing various analysis, ballistic tests, and now flight tests on fixed-wing aircrafts. That's awesome. So we really appreciate you all. Just amazing bios. We appreciate you being here with us today. So let's kick it off with some questions, because I know that we have some great things to hear from you. But before we do, I'll tell our audience a little bit about GiSTEMChats. So GiSTEMChats is our 30 to 60-minute segment throughout the year where professionals share their STEM career journeys, including their career roles, their aspirations, successes, challenges, any of those things faced during their career paths. So we realized that early exposure to careers in STEM is crucial to fast-tracking success. And also seeing people with similar attributes as you, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, your community, really plays a role in developing the confidence to pursue STEM careers. So that's why we are so excited to have them on today. So here's my first question, and anyone that wants to take this one first can definitely go for it. Tell me, has working in the field been something that you always wanted to do? Or is this something that just came about? And what was your motivation to get into the field that you're in?
Okay, so I'm the oldest, so I'll go first. So I always wanted to have something to do with aircraft. I always loved aircraft. I would love to be a fighter pilot and fly at Mach whatever. So that's what spurred me into seeking a career in aerospace engineering. And I've always loved math, always loved science, always loved challenges, puzzles, everything. So I kind of gravitated that way. And at the time growing up, my family was always in my head, on my nerves. I wanted to get away from them. So I chose to go into aerospace engineering to become an astronaut, to leave the planet and leave them behind. And then I would not have to be bothered with them anymore. So I didn't make the astronaut program for other reasons, but I still fell into the star career of aircraft and working with aircraft. So that's how I made my journey.
Wow. Hey, I love it though. That is something else. I love it. I love it.
And then for me, I'll say, so I got my bachelor's in chemical engineering, as well as earned my Air Force commission at the same time. There aren't any chemical engineers in the Air Force, so unfortunately the Air Force had a different path for me. So I was, I guess, kind of vectored to be an aircraft maintenance officer. I still apply some of the things that I learned in my engineering program to my career field every day. I mean, it's a very technical career field. You still do teamwork and projects and leading people, and there's lots of discipline involved in the career field and managing personnel and working through problems, as Miss Lisa alluded to as well. But I loved chemistry and math growing up, and I knew I wanted to do something technical. I just didn't know that it was gonna be aircraft maintenance. But I enjoy what I do. I've been doing it for about 14 years, so I enjoy it, and I think I'll stick with it.
That's really awesome. I think the one thing that I always say to people is you can find engineers in any place. They may not be doing hardcore engineering work, but you're able, like you said, you're able to use those projects, that problem solving, you know, those technical skills in so many different areas and really apply it and succeed. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
So I guess I'll go next. So my story is very similar to Lisa and Candace on how they got into engineering. It was because I love math and I love chemistry, and I was really, really good at it. It's my strongest subject in school. So the other reason I got into chemical engineering is because, to be frank, I wanted to make money after school. I knew that I would make a decent salary studying engineering. And so I ended up studying engineering at North Carolina A&T State University and Aggie Pride, and the rest was history. So I enjoy the field.
I love it. I love it. No, that makes total sense. I mean, it makes total sense. Trust me, I understand that as well. As a chemical engineer, I also understand that. So I thank you guys for sharing those things. So has your role evolved over time, while you've been doing your career, and what has that looked like for you?
I'll go first again. Yes, it has, because when you first are in college studying the field, you're doing hands-on equations, calculations, analyses, computer programming, a lot of hands-on work. When you transition to the business world, depending on where you land, you could continue that doing hands-on work, or a lot of times, I work for the federal government, you transition into more of program management or leadership roles where you are directing the work to be done. Yet those problem-solving skills still are paramount, because every project is a giant puzzle. You have to figure out how to put the pieces together. You have to be technically savvy enough to understand when people are talking to you and I say it's junk that they're telling you, and you got a technical background to sniff that out and correct them, or you have the technical wherewithal to guide people to success. So you're much less hands-on in your career field when you transition.
I love how you put that. It's a huge puzzle, and you just have to find the way that the pieces fit together. That's wonderful. I love that. What about you, Candace or Lillian?
I'd say for me, it's more so been just the scope of responsibility has changed. So again, being an aircraft maintenance officer, you're responsible for maintenance operations, maintenance processes, and those translate across airframes. As you saw, I've worked multiple airframes. So the maintenance processes and the foundation is the same across airframes, but it's just what I've done over those years. I might have started out as a first lieutenant, in a flight managing 50 people, and I might have only been responsible for like 6 airplanes. Whereas now, I've got a squadron of 600 people and 27 airplanes. It's just the scope of responsibility has just expanded over the years.
So for me, my career has grown. It just took a different path. So I started off as a process control engineer dealing with automation. So I started off with basically building the controls for valves that's in the field, speccing out valves, working with different vendors to spec out those valves and techs. And then I don't know, like a few years into my role, it was time for me to rotate, and my manager, he actually pitched a safety engineering role to me. And I was like, I don't know about being a safety engineer. I'm not like, sometimes I'm not a big fan of change because I just don't know. And then after talking to some folks and all of that, I was like, okay, I can do this, right? And so I ended up going into safety, and I've been in safety ever since then. I love it. It's my passion. I love sharing my experiences from things that I have done where I failed so that others will learn from me. I also love reading and researching incidents in the industry, and those outside of the industry too, where we can apply it so that we can take those lessons and make sure that it don't happen again. And I always say it's keeping it in the pipe. So I want to ensure that we keep it in the pipe and that the employees go home every day safely to their families. So better than what they came in or the same. But so that's how I got into safety. I love it, and I plan to continue doing it. So it's been good to me.
That's really amazing, because I think a lot of times as engineers, we think, as we're going through school, hey, this is what I'm going to end up doing. That's where I'm going to stay. That's where I'm comfortable, and we get into our careers, and then some of these opportunities come before us, and, you make a decision. Are you going to give it a try? Are you going to give it a go? Or are you going to pass? And so, like, I love how you decided to talk to a few people and kind of get some, people that you were comfortable with, talking to, and get some feedback from them on whether that would be a good role for you. And look at that. You found something you love. I love that. That's such a great story. Thank you for sharing that. So let's see, how about this? Would you guys give us any examples of challenges that you faced in your career and how you overcame that? Because I think a lot of times, sometimes we share all of the successes, but we don't always share, some of the challenges that we had in our careers. So do you have one that you would want to share with us?
Sure, I'll start. So, major challenge, I was performing ballistic testing on aircraft, and one of the aircraft we had to test was a C-5 aircraft, and that's the largest aircraft in the Air Force's inventory. We needed to find out how much oxygen was in the fuel tanks to determine if the aircraft went anywhere near combat and was impacted by projectiles, you would have an explosion. So we had the C-5 aircraft was at Davis-Monthan, which is where they retire aircraft. And we were going to perform the tests there. I had a team from Dover Air Force Base, a team from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and another team from a unit in Texas that were converging in Arizona to perform this test. We were told when we got there, that we couldn't use trucks to fuel this jet. Now, this aircraft has so much fuel in it, you cannot fuel it with truck tanks. You have to connect it to a main source and fill this aircraft. So once we got there, we had to present our approach to the base commander. And we were told by the team that was supporting us at Davis-Monthan that nobody had been able to do this kind of testing on their property, and the base commander wasn't going to have it, and all this kind of stuff. So I had one chart that I briefed. It had the congressional mandated law on it that says why we had to do this test. And we asked for their support. And I asked, what can you do? How can we perform this on your property and put you at ease and lower the risk? And we had to go back to our hotel and wait. And he allowed us to come on base. And his name was Colonel Panic. So we were all cracking up like, you're kidding. No, his name was really Colonel Panic. And he allowed us to perform this test. Later, the lead guy who was at Davis-Monthan told me the only way that happened was because I asked, how can we perform this test on your property? Other people had come in telling the commander, here's what we're going to do. You're going to give us this, you're going to do that. And he flat out told him, no, get off my base. So, at points in time, you have to, again, this is all problem solving. You have to judge your crowd and go in and think, how would I want to be treated to resolve this situation? And most of the time it will work in your favor if you're thinking of how would I want to be treated? Let me give this approach. I had a backup, but that approach worked. So, yeah.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. That is really great advice. I mean, it's so true. You have to think, you have to read your audience. Yes. You really do have to. So, wow, I'm so happy that worked in your favor and you didn't have to go to plan B. That is awesome. That's awesome. Did anyone else have any thoughts that they wanted to share?
Okay, I'll go. So for me, with a challenge that I had, I already talked about it when change. So a couple of years ago, I was presented the opportunity to basically perform a health, safety, security, and environmental due diligence for a future asset purchase for our company. And so I was like super nervous about it. I wasn't really excited, but I'm like, little me, like, why are they taking me to do this? It's too much pressure, right? For this big company to do this for a project that we have never even did before in the company. Like, I don't know anything about that. I only know refining. And so I don't know, I was uneasy about it because I like performing well and, you know, kind of having an idea of what I do. So anyhow, I later did what I always do, call a friend. Hey, I remember you doing due diligence before. How did you do that, right? Can you share the tools you used and all of that? So basically, I got all of that information, was able to capture their lessons learned. They were able to share like the company expectations with due diligence from a health, safety, security, and environmental standpoint. And so I was able to get the tools I needed. And so I was able to go through everything, but guess what? I got overwhelmed going through. I was like, wait, it's usually like multiple people doing this, and it's just me. And so I remember just like crying. I ended up crying in the office. And so one of the operations engineers that I was working with, he was like, you know, are you okay? And then we started talking. He was like, you don't have to go through this checklist like line by line, right? You can do it from a higher level. That was the best feedback that I received. Being a safety engineer, we're always preparing for these OSHA audits, and you got to be in detail and all of that, have great details. But for what we were doing, you can do it from a high level. So it was excellent coaching. I'm so happy he caught me, you know, when I was going through my emotional moment. But we were successful with purchasing the asset. We ended up expanding the facility, and it's operating today, and it's our first renewable natural gas project for the company. So it's very exciting, and I'm so happy that that person, you know, stepped in. So what I would like to tell the students or anyone, adults, is collaboration is so important to help us problem solve. It brings organizations closer together. It helps us learn from one another, each other. It also makes us an efficient worker. So it's just very important to collaborate.
No, those are great words and great feedback. See, I think that sometimes we, you know, forget, you know, as engineers, because we're always looking at solving problems and we have so much attention to detail that we sometimes forget, like, let's take a higher view of this thing and see how we can get through it. So that was really great feedback. And I agree, collaboration is the way to success. You can't do it alone, you know, and that's something that we tried to teach our girls as well, is the importance of how each piece and each role fits together to make things work. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I know we're getting a little bit later in our time, so I'm going to move us along a little bit. But before I do, I wanted to talk about our GSTEM Week 2021. So we have GSTEM Week coming up. We're so excited about it. This is going to be our inaugural GSTEM Week. It'll be July 6th through July 9th, 2021. And then on the 10th, they're going to be presenting their projects. So GSTEM Week is our week-long program to focus on real-world STEM applications, covering a STEM subject each day. Professionals from the field will share their STEM career journey, much like what we're doing today, to include their career roles and career challenges as women in STEM. These professionals will also be available to offer advice and mentorship to those students that participate on their personal journeys. Participants will be exposed to hands-on activities and real-world problems to teach foundational STEM skills. So if you missed being a part of GSTEM Week 2021, hey, there's time. You can do it next year. We have our applications opening up in September of 2021. So don't miss this opportunity to participate. I'm telling you, it's going to be lit. All right. So we hope that you join us in 2022. All right. So we're going to get back to our questions. All right. So let's see here. Candace, I would love for you to answer this. As a mom, what advice would you give to other moms that are considering professional roles or roles in the military, or what advice would you give? And what challenges do you think that you would have to face, as a mom, and how to overcome them? How would you encourage moms
I would
that want
just
to be
say,
professionals?
just do it. I mean, there's no good time, especially raising children. Do you do it when they're young? Do you do it when they're older? I mean, something is always going to pop up. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, I say you need to find a way to make it happen. Hopefully you have that support team around you. You got that village around you that's going to be there to be able to pick up some of that support. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have a spouse, but there are a lot of women that are unfortunately in single parent households and they're doing it all on their own. So they really need to rely on that village to uplift them and provide that extra support so they can get the job done. It's hard balancing both, but I mean, we're super women, right? All moms are super women. We wear capes under everything we have on. So, I mean, we will always find a way to get it done. And really that's what it's all about is you have a goal, set your mind to it and achieve it. I mean, it might be difficult, but you got to go for it.
No, truer words have never been spoken. That is dead on. That is dead on. I love it. And I love that we're all moms on this call. This is exciting. What about my other moms on the call? What would be your advice to other moms?
Keep your sense of humor. Nothing is ever going to go right. Well, let me say it this way. The way you envision it, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to modify. I raised 4 kids of my own and 2, a niece and a nephew. I always traveled because my job required me to travel. So I would try to set the household before I left so that my husband wasn't overwhelmed. Not that he couldn't do it, but just, okay, I know to be nice, this will help you out. They knew mom and dad both worked, so they fall right in line when you start, when you start having a family and they know you're working, you've got travel, you've got meetings, you've got things to do. They have travel, they have work, they have school. My kids learned how to use PowerPoint when they were in like 3rd grade. I would take them to the office sometimes, show them what I did. We always had discussions to talk about what mom does, what dad does. Just keep them involved in what you're doing. Don't look at them like, well, they will never know or they won't understand. Kids are very bright. They know what's happening. They pay attention. They don't miss a beat. They know what you're doing. As Candace said, in some households, it's a little more difficult because there's only one parent. So it's definitely valuable to have a network or have a family outside of your immediate family to kind of rely on. We've had that in our neighborhood with different families. I would take different kids into our home because their parents had to work or their dad had to work. So, I fed them, clothed them. When my kids went to the barbershop, the sons of our friend, they would go to the barbershop too, because it was hair day, so it is challenging, but I tell people you went to college, you pulled all-nighters sometimes, you stayed up all night doing crazy stuff. So don't tell me you can't get up at night and feed that kid or check that homework or do that laundry or cook that meal. You did all that in college. So just keep it going. So
I love it. That's so true. And it definitely takes a village. So I love that. That's great. Lillian, I have a question for you. As a mom of girls, what advice would you give to young girls about, pursuing technical roles and if they're interested in STEM?
I would tell them to do not be afraid. There are so many opportunities that are out there from a STEM standpoint. I don't know, like even with video gaming, when things come up, do not be afraid to try new things. You may not realize that, hey, that could be your career. So like for me, like, hey, I didn't think that I wanted to be a safety engineer, but then I gave it a try and I ended up liking it. So like, don't just go to saying no when the opportunities come.
No, that's perfect. That's so great. That's great information. Girls, just go for it. Let's go for it. Yeah. So do any of you have any interests outside of your profession, a business, a hobby, or an organization that you're a part of that you'd like to share about? And then why is it important for engineers to be well-rounded individuals and do other things outside of just their profession?
I don't have any major things that I'm doing right now, but it's important. Couple reasons. One, a lot of us don't live in an urban area or a neighborhood where you've got a bunch of families on the same block and all the kids are playing and they're exposed to the doctor that's down the street, or the veterinarian that lives next door, or the police officer that's around the corner, or the fireman, or the garbage collector. You know, you're kind of pocketed. So the more interaction you have in the community, and then some of the children see, oh, what does your mom do? Because you know they ask it in school. You know, everybody asks in school, what's your mom do? What's your dad do? Or even daycare. What's your mom do? What's your dad do? You know, your dad comes in. Why is your mom always wearing a suit? That's what my kids used to get asked all the time. Why is your mom always wearing a suit? And they have to explain, well, here's what she does. And they're really, you know, so even if you go, even going to school functions, right? You know, that's part of being in the community and being visible. And just to showcase, because you never know who's looking. You never know who you're going to walk in, who's going to talk to you. You never know what parents are going to question you, because that's always fun. And you always have women who are interested in, well, I work from home. Do you work from home? Or, well, I work not outside the home, but you work in the home. So how does that work for your household? So you have different dynamics that you share and different ways to interact with people. And that communication is very valuable for all engineers. I know a lot of us think nobody wants to write. A lot of engineers, I don't want to write a report. Okay, you have to write a report. I don't want to write that document. I don't want to do that briefing, but you have to, because you have to communicate what's in your head. And as Lillian said, if you collaborate with somebody who might be good at it, okay, it's less daunting. But if you never do it, you close yourself off, and you can't. You kind of get stuck. So it is important to get out in the community and interact with people. And even though it's COVID-19, you know, it's still interesting to get out in the community.
Absolutely, just do it safe, but get out there.
Right.
Lillian or Candace, do you have any words?
So I think the question was, do we have any interests or businesses outside of our profession? So I do. I own a photography business. I love it. It's my out. So it gives me a break from work. It has me like, it keeps me like not working so much with my full-time job. It's a good balance with me being a mom. I get to take a break from the kids and being a wife. And I'm like, I'm going to do my photography thing. And I get to sit at the computer and nobody bothers me and I edit, right? So I absolutely love it. It's my creative outlet. Let's see, what else? I think you asked, why is it important for engineers to be well-rounded? And so it's like, it's important for us to be well-rounded so you can see the bigger picture, right? And to be open to learning new skills and technology. So you got to be well-rounded so to be successful.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. In maintenance, we call it filling up our toolbox. So you want to fill your toolbox up with all, different kinds of things. So you get a different perspective, you know, you gain different ideas. You don't want to be thinking like everyone else. I mean, it's all about diversity of thought, diversity of action, and you can't do that if you're just going to work, coming home. You're not interacting with the community. You're not interacting and networking with other people in your field. You have to do those things and get out there to expand your knowledge and your database. So.
The great words. I think we've gotten so many nuggets during this conversation. Fill your toolbox. I love it. I'm going to keep that one. I'm putting it in my pocket. I'm going to keep that one. I love it. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys being here today. One of the things that I've really heard us talking about a lot was networking with people to help us be more successful. So I appreciate everything that you guys shared today. So that's going to wrap up our GSTEM chat for today. We really appreciate Lillian and Candace and Lisa for being on the call today. Again, I'm Shatara Weaver. I'm with GSTEM. I'm the Vice President and Head of Engineering. Thank you guys for joining the call today. If you enjoyed today's GSTEM chat event, our next event is going to be virtual and it's going to be 21.4, What About Manufacturing, taking place on September 8th. 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So be there. This will be an amazing event. So we appreciate our guests for taking the time to speak with us today, and our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever social media channel that you're on at GSTEM Inc. And if you have any questions or would like to know more about GSTEM, please review our website at www.gsteminc.org or contact us by email at gsteminc@gmail.com. We cannot wait to see you again on our next GSTEM chat, and we hope that you have an excellent day. Thanks so much for tuning in.